Nikki, can you tell everyone just how you went from being a hobbyist kind of costumer to turning that into your main career, and now that you're like an online content creator? I know you're going to be selling patterns very soon. Can you just kind of walk us through that process of you're just like, I'm doing this for fun. Well, you know what? Now I'm going to do this as a career because I'm good at it and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it never really was like a conscious decision of, all right, now this is what I'm going to do. This is what I've made. It started off as I actually grew up as a performer and always wanted to help out in the different areas of theater. So I initially started painting like some of the backdrops, and then I went into costumes and was like, do you guys need any help? I can kind of sew. And here's all this work. And it just kind of spiraled from there. A friend of mine did party princessing, and before she moved out of state, she gave me all of her stuff. She was like, you'll be perfect for this. Then I realized I didn't have the money for an Elsa gown, and Elsa was all anybody ever wanted. So I was, I could make that. Like, that's always been my thing. It's like, I can make that. Even if I didn't actually know how, I was like, I'll figure it out. So, and that's just kind of what I did. Like, I did go to school, but I only got like an AA in technical theater. And when I went in, I ended up actually teaching more than I learned.
Oh.
Yeah, so like my first semester, you know, we did our typical like, here's some hand stitches, here's how to like break down a script and all that. But once we got into the actual sewing of our costume class, I don't remember if she asked or if I was just kind of a butthead and went up and was like, here's my bell dress, I know how to sew. It was something like that. And she was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, a skirt's gonna be a little too basic for you. So what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to make a historical gown.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, so like my first project, while everyone else was sewing a very basic skirt from a pattern, I was making an 1890s gown based off of Crimson Peak. And I did it. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was my very first historical gown. And then the next semester, because I think we had to take 3 or 4 classes to get our degree, she was like, she just kind of like let me help teach. And she asked me to be like a assistant teacher, like hired by the school for the next couple semesters. And then she kept me after, like hired me to design for my college show. So like I did technically go to school for it, but it was just like building on skills that I already had from teaching. And I've had a lot of jobs, but I don't like the corporate world. I've always done kind of a freelance thing. And so when I really wanted to get back into performing, I didn't want to completely like lose all the arts and crafts, like handwork. And so I was like, you know what? I really love YouTube. Let me just do everything that I want to do on YouTube. And so I'm starting with teaching people the skills that I have learned myself through the trial and error. But eventually I want to start producing like music videos and skits to get back to my performance roots. Might be doing that this year.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. There's been a lot of times where people will be like, well, why don't you just choose one thing? Or why don't you just get a regular job? And it's just like, it goes against every fiber of me. So I just keep rolling with it, and just you know, it's hard being an online content creator, because especially when you're initially starting off, the money's not great, so you're trying to figure out every option that you can to, you know, to make an income. And so a lot of people have been asking for my bell pattern, because bell was the video that really like blew up my channel. So I was like, okay, I'll learn how to pattern grade and learn how to digitize using InDesign and learn how to open a web shop and like sell that to you. So it's just piling on from there. But I like learning, and I like picking up new skills. So it all just feeds into each other.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I totally understand the whole kind of like corporate soul sucking aspect. You know, I love that, you know, you just kind of fell into it and it just felt right, and it worked out, you know, and it's working out for you, and you're, you know, trying other new things, and you know, branching into, you know, producing music videos and things like that. Like, I would love to see you as Rapunzel, just like singing outside some giant castle. This is what you have to do. You're gonna rent a castle, then your hair goes all the way out, and you're just gonna be singing out the window. Yes.
Yep.
Hair. Like, this is real life Rapunzel right here. So I love that it was so organic for you to kind of become a business owner, and you're just learning, you know, you're just learning as you go, and that you're going based off of what people are asking you for. So they're asking you for patterns, so you're like, all right, I'll teach myself how to digitize a pattern with the tools that I have, because I don't have a digitizer and a Gerber program that will cost me $100,000. Like, this is what I have, and this is how I'm going to make it work. So, you know, I think that's a great message also for other entrepreneurs and people that aren't sure what their niche is and trying to learn how to do anything, is really just trying it out and seeing how, you know, how it works, and then going from there. And, you know, in my other videos too, I talk about, you know, if you want to be a designer, yeah, you can be self-taught. You can teach yourself. It's just, you have to hold yourself accountable. So that's the harder part of it, where if you're in school, okay, you got homework, you got a grade, so you kind of pass. But when you're self-taught, like, you're doing all the research, you're testing yourself, you're trying it. I mean, you're still crying and giving yourself homework and stuff.
Yeah.
Crying. Like, do you cry a lot, Nikki? I guess that's a good question. Do you cry a lot?
Do I cry a lot?
Yes. Do you cry a lot?
Oh my God, all the time. I cried like 2 nights ago.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, you know, a lot of people think it's, you know, oh, it's glamorous, oh, but you're making stuff, and it's this and that. And it's like, no, it's a lot of crying. It's a lot of crying. Like, it really is, because you're so in love with what you do, and you want it to be perfect, you know, and like, if you're a perfectionist and things like that, which I know you are, so I can say that. I am too. I'm stupid perfect, like, it's dumb. But when you are like that, then you putting your heart and soul into everything. And so when things either aren't working out, or if they are just kind of not going the way you really planned on it, you start crying, and you're just exhausted because you're putting your soul into it. So I just want people to know that, you know, there is just the fun and the glamour side and all this, but also there is the side where you could be like Nikki and be learning as you're going. Like, you just keep going and you keep learning, and if something doesn't work out, you move to the next thing and you just try something else, you know. So I love that about you. I love that you also do that. So it's not just like me saying, oh, this is what I do. No, when I say I know other designers that do these things, this is what I'm talking about. Like, we are both designers, and we both kind of have a chaotic work about us, but we're different, but also we kind of work the same, you know. So I love that about you. Do you have any advice for someone who is, you know, because I know you do a lot of, you know, princess, you know, that's kind of your persona as a prince. I don't know. Even I think I was talking to somebody who was asking me, at the shoot we did for Angel, somebody was asking me something, and they're like, oh, she looks like a real princess. I was like, yeah, I know, she is. Like, because you were walking ahead of us. I forget, maybe it was one of the models or something. You were walking ahead of us, and they're like, oh, she's a really Disney princess. Like, she looks like a princess. I was like, yeah, I know. Like, I know, trust, I know.
What gave you that idea? As I literally have Belle's rose and Rapunzel's tiara.
I noticed that too, because, you know, Bella's my favorite. So, like, what advice do you have for someone that maybe wants to get into costuming, or wants to get into, because I know you do historical costume, big ball gown, big, you know, you're really all about that type of extra kind of look. What would be your advice to them if they're, you know, self-taught and they're trying to learn as you did, where you kind of just did a lot of trial and error, a lot of research? I know you did. because we've had these conversations. But what would be your advice to them if they're, struggling with, I guess, trying to maybe get to a level they see other people at? What would be your advice?
Yeah. One, always reading, like follow as many inspirational people as possible, and not just for a glance at whatever they're doing and keep going. Like really zoom in. Like on Instagram, I'll look at other designers and like zoom in on their photos and try and figure out how they did things. I'm constantly reading, constantly rereading too. There's quite a few blogs that I frequent, and I go back and keep reading over these things, because sometimes your brain glosses over things and you don't, it doesn't set in, or, sometimes it takes actually doing the thing to have it finally set in. You can read a drafting book as many times as possible. Until you actually do it, you're not going to fully get it. Be okay with making mistakes. I've remade Rapunzel 6 times, and I'm doing it again next year. Well, starting this year, but I'm gonna make her again next year, because each time you do something, you're gonna learn how to do it better and better and better. So you just have to keep practicing and not be afraid to make mistakes. And in all honesty, like self-doubt is something that gets to me so bad. And my best friend, she had me watch RuPaul's Masterclass about like finding your tribe and finding those people that really are going to push you and support you, encourage you to be the best person, even when you're not, or even when you're doubting yourself. And I think as much as doing the act itself is important, having that support behind you is important as well. Because even if like they don't always know exactly what you're trying to create, they're always going to be a fresh perspective, and you need somebody that's going to be honest with you too. For the times when it's good, for the times when it's actually bad, like having that tribe is really important. You just got to jump in and not be afraid to make mistakes. So
yeah, and I really love that, that the just jumping in and making mistakes, because that's how you learn, that's how you get better. Because I mean, even with me, when I make things the first time, I mean, it's maybe about 80% good, like, and it's a solid B, like, like it's not perfect, but it's the first sample, but if I were to remake it again, or for a customer, there's little things that I'm like, oh, I should have top stitched that, oh, I should have done X, Y, and Z. Like, I learned that by doing it this next time, and I'm like, okay, but that's me learning, because even though I've been sewing for so long, not everything I'm going to do the first time is going to be like, oh, A++, like perfect, like never.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd ever get to that point where everything I made is literally perfect the first time. I think it takes just having the practice, and like you said, going out and just doing it, and not just relying on books. Because I have a friend that I tell that to all the time, because she wants to sew more and learn how to do things. And I was like, okay, just throw it in your serger, do it. Because she's like afraid of knits, and I'm like, just throw it in your serger, trust me, just put it in your serger, it's fine. It's like, no, but do I have to like straight stitch it I'm like, no, just throw it in your serger, I promise you it'll work out. So I love that you have that same advice of just researching. Yes, do your research, yes, look up things, look up tutorials, all those things, but also just try it out and see, because that's the best way you're going to even know what you have to do. So I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, like even just the other day, I'm not sure where it went, but I've bought so many books on corsetry and stuff, and I consider that one of my strongest skills. But even still, like I'm still playing with figuring out exactly what panels need to go on what grain line, because the bias can affect so much of the shape of the corset. And so like literally the other day I made one with different grain lines for to see how it works. And and that's the stuff that people are never going to see. Or at least most people will never see. We'll see if I get the balls to put it up on the internet. But yeah, and I feel like social media also kind of contributes to this perfectionism problem, where people only want to show their highlight reel. They don't the mess ups, the screw ups. Like I can think of so many designers right now that, you know, if you actually looked at their stuff up close, it's really messy, but nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Like, some of the biggest designers in the world that I can think of right now, like if you get up close and you've seen their stuff, it's not that clean. And the perfectionism doesn't ever help. It gets in the way of actual progress because we are human, we are fallible, we're gonna mess up.
Mm-hmm.
Get the mess ups out of the way before you can make the perfect whatever. And in all honesty, there's never gonna be a perfect thing, and that's not only just like a human thing, but that's an artist thing. We're always going to see something we want to make better, but you just have to keep doing and doing and doing until you can finally get to a place where you're like, okay, that is good enough. There's no real perfect, there is good enough, because there's always going to be something to improve upon, and that doesn't mean you stop improving upon it, but at some point you can say, all right, I think I have maxed out, let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, no, and you're totally right, and I love that. You know, other people get to hear this advice too, so it's not just me saying, you know, saying this, but you saying that there isn't, you know, a full like perfect, you know, and that persona online that you only want to show things when it's perfect and done. Because I feel like I've kind of fallen into that trap sometimes too, where it's like I don't really want to show a progress picture where it has the raw edge and things like that, because then people are like, oh, that's not clean. That's, you know, da da da. But I'm like, but that's why it's a progress picture. Like, it's not done yet. But I also want to, you know, but I'm like, But no, you're right. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. Even showing online and showing the progress and showing, you know, the missteps and, you know, the trial and error, like you said you were doing with the corset, of putting it all on different grain lines. I mean, that's really cool. That would be really cool to see, and interesting to see like how it fits on someone when you lace them up in it, you know, and how that actually looks. Like, yeah, it might look ugly or whatever because it's in muslin and there's just a bunch of grain lines written on here or whatever, but you know, that's the process of getting a really great fitting corset by Nikki Blackwell. I mean, that's the process.
Another thing I think people forget is if you look at some of the most beautiful gowns or really any art in history, there is imperfection in it, and that's what makes it beautiful. Like if you think of some of the furniture at like the Palace of Versailles, like the Rococo furniture, those carvings into those wood are not perfect, but they look so beautiful because there's mistakes in it. If you look at a lot of the historical gowns inside, they're ugly. They've been resewn, resized, all sorts of crazy stuff. They didn't have serging, and like they had ways to finish their raw edges and stuff, but they didn't, because at the end of the day, it's like, you just want to wear the darn thing.
Yeah.
It'll be beautiful even if it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try not to fault myself too hard for not doing things like, and I think that's the other thing is at some point you learn when to be a perfectionist and when to not. So for instance, I'm looking at my bell bodice right now. I had taken some trim off to like assess the pattern for some digital stuff, and I didn't perfectly sew on the have like this fancy trim along the bottom edge of the corset. I didn't put it on perfectly. I was in a rush to get to WonderCon and get that costume filmed, but it was good enough to stay on and nobody would know the difference.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a sign of professionalism too, knowing where to put your energy, because there's this thing in the disabled community about spoons. You know, you only have so many, you only have so much energy to give out to certain things. So if you're giving 100% of your energy on something that's only 20% of the project, you're never going to finish it. You're always going to hate it. So learning where to put that energy is really important too, as a creator and as a human. Like, you know, where you put the energy is where you're going to grow. And so if you're putting it in silly stuff that is really inconsequential, you're going to grow.
Yeah, no, and that's very true. It's knowing, you know, what to really focus on and what's, you know, and looking at the big picture of everything, because yeah, like you said, like no one's gonna notice, you know, the little part that you rush through, no one's even gonna notice. No one even thought two things about you rush through one part. They saw the full look, with the wig and the makeup and the full gown and everything. And that was just like, oh my gosh, well, Belle, hello, Belle.
Yeah.
Like that was like the whole thing. Like nobody noticed those type of things, but I get it. I get being like focused or thinking about like, dang, I should have done that a little bit better because, you know, because I think about that too when I do shows, fashion shows, and I'm making something in a rush because that's how it ends up being all the time. And I'm like, oh, I should have top stitched that down. You know, maybe I should have added that trim on there. Well, maybe I should, you know, it's like afterwards you're like, well, I wish I would have had all this time to like sit back and think about other things I could do. But sometimes you just go with the flow because like you said, like nobody noticed. Nobody says like, well, Ginger, you didn't top stitch down that part right there. And I saw it and I don't like it. So now I'm never gonna buy something from you. Like nobody has ever said that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too I've noticed is like the biggest critics are the ones that are not actually doing. And they are a critic because they're not doing. So you know, as long as you can be happy with what you've done at the end of the day, that's kind of all that matters.
Yeah, no, very, very true. Because there has been many times that people kind of say some things of like, oh, you know, if I was the designer and I knew how to make clothes, I'd be making clothes for myself every day. I was like, oh, really?
Then do it. Then do it.
Clearly, you got plenty of time all day to just be sitting around, sitting at a machine, sewing and pattern making and making stuff. I'm like, okay, go ahead. But yeah, no, that's very true. And, you know, even with some of my costumes that I've made in the past, people are like, oh, well, I noticed this is different from the character you're trying to be. And da-da-da. I'm like, okay, but do you sew? Oh, I don't sew. Okay, then shut up.
Yep. Accuracy is one of those things that really annoy me. Honestly, in the cosplay community.
Yeah.
Because it does take a certain amount of skill to make something very accurate, but the thing is it will never be actually accurate.
Yeah.
Even if you get the same fabric as the designer or whatever, you know, if you get it off the set, like remnants off the set, it's never gonna be exactly the same. And that's my same gripe with like Disney cosplay or historical costuming. It's never gonna be actually accurate. And I feel it's almost a form of gatekeeping. So I kind of just said F it with like the cosplay accuracy and just started doing my own thing because it's more fun.
Yeah.
It's more memorable. And I think it takes maybe not greater skill, but definitely a different set of skills to your own to make it, you know, more grandiose, whatever, and find your style as a creator. Yeah, accuracy just annoys me.
No, trust me too. Like, and I just feel like it's so relative because it depends on the references maybe you look at versus somebody else. So somebody else can look at something and interpret it one way and somebody else and interpret it a whole other way. So to me, it's like relative to whoever is looking at it, you know, but you don't know, you know, I mean, you're going based off of what you think and what you perceive. So I know, I hate that accuracy thing too.
And I think the accuracy thing is also a huge, like barrier to people wanting to get in because like I'm in a couple like cosplay groups and I see younger like kids and stuff being like, I want to cosplay this character, but I don't have this accurate thing, or I don't have money for this accurate thing. And it's like, stop. Like,
yeah,
we really have to stop perpetuating that because like you should be making things and cosplaying and all this stuff because it's fun, because you get enjoyment.
Yeah.
Like, the moment it becomes this like accuracy money competition, it just loses all value that it initially has.
No, that's very true. So thank you, Nikki, so much for joining and giving all of your advice and just experience with being a costumer and being a costume designer and a freelancer and just working in this industry and what it's like, and being sure to let my followers know that it's not just a glamorous life of costuming. It's just nothing but just living in racks of clothes and things like that. No, it's a lot of work. I wanted you to just kind of give a shout out. I'll put it in the description box as well, but just where people can find you online and, you know, shout out your channel and anything else that you'd like to shout out, I'll put it in the description box below.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You can find me at Let Down Your Golden Hair across most platforms. On TikTok, it's Let Down URGOLDN hair. Username limits. But yeah, Let Down Your Golden Hair or Nikki Blackwell. You can find me pretty much anywhere.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for watching and tuning in. And be sure to check out Nikki's channel and check out everything she has on there because she has so much costume content and creation. And I really actually enjoy it. I mean, she says she's like, I don't like my voice in this video. I was like, that was my favorite one. What are you talking about? So be sure to check her out. She is super amazing, an amazing human being and lovely person. And you will learn so much from her as well. So, other than that, cuties, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stay cute and stay unique. Okay, bye.